By using your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch iOS device, you are agreeing to be bound by the following terms. A. Apple iOS Software License Agreement. B. Apple Pay Supplemental Terms. C. Notices from Apple. Apple Inc. iOS Software License Agreement. Single-use license. Please read this software license agreement license carefully before using your iOS device or downloading the software update accompanying this license. By using your iOS device or downloading a software update as applicable, you are agreeing to be bound by the terms of this license. If you do not agree to the terms of this license, do not use the iOS device or download the software update. If you have recently purchased an iOS device and you do not agree to the terms of the license, you may return the iOS device within the return period to the Apple Store or authorized distributor where you obtained it for a refund. Subject to Apple's return policy found at https://www.apple.com. Legal Sales Policies. Part 1. General. A. The software including boot ROM code, embedded software and third-party software, documentation, interfaces, content, fonts, and any data that came with your iOS device, original iOS software, as may be updated or replaced by feature enhancements, software updates, or system restore software provided by Apple. iOS software updates, whether in read-only memory, on any other media, or in any other form. The original iOS software and iOS software updates are collectively referred to as the iOS software, are licensed not sold to you by Apple Inc. Apple, for use only under the terms of this license. Apple and its licensors retain ownership of the iOS software itself and reserve all rights not expressly granted to you. You agree that the terms of this license will apply to any Apple-branded app that may be built in on your iOS device unless such app is accompanied by a separate license, in which case you agree that the terms of that license will govern your use of that app. B. Apple, at its discretion, may make available future iOS software updates. The iOS software updates, if any, may not necessarily include all existing software features or new features that Apple releases for newer or other models of iOS devices. The terms of this license will govern any iOS software updates provided by Apple, unless such iOS software update is accompanied by a separate license, in which case you agree that the terms of that license will govern. C. If you use the Express Setup feature to set up a new iOS device based on your existing iOS device, you agree that the terms of this license will govern your use of the iOS software on your new iOS device, unless it is accompanied by a separate license, in which case you agree that the terms of that license will govern your use of that iOS software. Part 2. Permitted license uses and restrictions. A. Subject to the terms and conditions of this license, you are granted a limited, non-exclusive license to use the iOS software on a single Apple-branded iOS device, except as permitted in Section 2B below. And unless provided in a separate agreement between you and Apple, this license does not allow the iOS software to exist on more than one Apple-branded iOS device at a time. And you may not distribute or make the iOS software available over a network where it could be used by multiple devices at the same time. This license does not grant you any rights to use Apple proprietary interfaces and other intellectual property in the design, development, manufacture, licensing, or distribution of third-party devices and accessories, or third-party software applications for use with iOS devices. Some of those rights are available under separate licenses from Apple. For more information on developing third-party devices and accessories for iOS devices, please visit https://developer.apple.com. Programs, MFI. For more information on developing software applications for iOS devices, please visit https://developer.apple.com. B. Subject to the terms and conditions of this license, you are granted a limited, non-exclusive license to download iOS software updates that may be made available by Apple for your model of the iOS device. To update or restore the software on any such iOS device that you own or control, This license does not allow you to update or restore any iOS device that you do not control or own, and you may not distribute or make the iOS software updates available over a network where they could be used by multiple devices or multiple computers at the same time. If you download an iOS software update to your computer, you may make one copy of the iOS software update stored on your computer in machine-readable form for backup purposes only, provided that the backup copy must include all copyright or other proprietary notices contained on the original. Z. To the extent that Apple has pre-installed Apple-branded apps from the App Store on your iOS device at the time of purchase, pre-installed apps, you will need to log in to the App Store and associate these pre-installed apps with your App Store account in order to use them on your iOS device. When you associate a pre-installed app with your App Store account, you will at the same time be automatically associating all other pre-installed apps on your iOS device. By choosing to associate the pre-installed apps with your App Store account, you agree that Apple may transmit, collect, maintain, process, and use both the Apple ID used by your App Store account and a unique hardware identifier collected from your iOS device as unique account identifiers for the purpose of verifying the eligibility of your request and providing you access to the pre-installed apps through the App Store. If you do not wish to use a pre-installed app, you can delete it from your iOS device at any time. D. You may not, and you agree not to enable others to copy, except as expressly permitted by this license, decompile, reverse engineer, disassemble, attempt to derive the source code of, decrypt, modify, or create derivative works of the iOS software or any services provided by the iOS software or any part thereof, except as and only to the extent any foregoing restriction is prohibited by applicable law or by licensing terms governing use of open source components that may be included with the iOS software. E. The iOS software may be used to reproduce materials so long as such use is limited to reproduction of non-copyrighted materials in which you own the copyright, or materials you are authorized or legally permitted to reproduce. Title and intellectual property rights in and to any content displayed by, stored on, or accessed through your iOS device belong to the respective content owner. Such content may be protected by copyright or other intellectual property laws and treaties, and may be subject to terms of use of the third party providing such content, except as otherwise provided herein. This license does not grant you any rights to use such content, nor does it guarantee that such content will continue to be available to you. F. You agree to use the iOS software and the services as defined in Section 5 below in compliance with all applicable laws, including local laws of the country or region in which you reside, or in which you download or use the iOS software and services. Features of the iOS software and the services may not be available in all languages or regions. Some features may vary by region, and some may be restricted or unavailable from your service provider. A Wi-Fi or cellular data connection is required for some features of the iOS software and services. G. Use of the App Store requires a unique username and password combination known as an Apple ID. An Apple ID is also required to access app updates and certain features of the iOS software and services. H. You acknowledge that many features, built-in apps, and services of the iOS software transmit data and could impact charges to your data plan, and that you are responsible for any such charges. You can view and control which applications are permitted to use cellular data and view an estimate of how much data such applications have consumed under Cellular Data Settings. For more information, please consult the user guide for your iOS device. I. If you choose to allow automatic app updates, your iOS device will periodically check with Apple for updates to the apps on your device, and if one is available, the update will automatically download and install onto your device. You can turn off the automatic app updates altogether at any time by going to Settings, tap iTunes and App Store, and under Automatic Downloads, turn off updates. J. Using your iOS device in some circumstances can distract you and may cause a dangerous situation. For example, avoid typing a text message while driving a car or using headphones while riding a bicycle. By using your iOS device, you agree that you are responsible for observing rules that prohibit or restrict the use of mobile phones or headphones. For example, the requirement to use hands-free options for making calls while driving.